Are you looking to become a Tier 1 operator in the gaming world? Elevate your games with Black Site Studio Terrain. Folks, I hope you're stuck with us through our technical issue. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, that was, I don't know what happened there. Apologize for that. The OBS studio totally crashed on us, and we are back. And let me start the question over I was given to you, Jim, before the failure there. Whether it's a game you've already created or a game in your library, what do you have within your collection that you consider the perfect war game? It may not be like the absolute perfect, but in your category or your library of games, what do you consider your perfect war game right now?
Honestly, like you perhaps alluded to a second ago, there is no perfect war game. But one thing that I've sort of found is that okay, let me think of how to frame this question somewhat succinctly. Okay, war games are like tools in your work chest. You have to have multiple tools for different jobs or whatever.
Right.
And there are some games that are going to work for certain things and not others. So the idea of like a perfect war game in a general sense might not be great. However, you can have a game that is very, very either malleable or very adaptable that you can do multiple things with. They can have a really good, general core system that can be applied to a bunch of different things or whatever.
Yeah.
On top of that, you can have a bunch of other. Obviously, my first answer would traditionally be Panzerblitz, Panzerleader, Arab-Israeli Wars. But I can't really say that because those games out of the box need a lot of love.
Uh-huh.
Those are some of the first games of their type way back in the late 60s and early 70s. And as such, the Model Ts of gaming, or at least that kind of gaming, commercially available, you buy one box for $10 in those days, and you are set for life with Panzerleader or Panzerblitz or whatever, there's a lot of problems in those games. So I can't really go with those. But a game like that, if I had to have a perfect game, at least for our community, the closest that might come to perfect would be Valorant Victory.
Yeah.
Number one, it's free. Number two, it is lower level on the command scale. You play with squads and fire teams, which is closer to a lot of the other games that people either on SITREP or on tabletop or other communities tend to play. It's not that big of a leap from people who play like Flames of War or Bolt Action or Chain of Command or Battle Group or things like that to make the jump into a more of a hex encounter kind of a game. It's easy. It's free. The rules are quick, adaptable. It was originally published for World War II. Since then, I've done it for World War I, World War I, Vietnam, the Falklands, and Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And people have done it for everything up to and including Mars attacks. It's that, infinitely, it's not infinitely scalable, but it's infinitely, maybe not infinitely, but it's very, very adaptable. It's very user-friendly. And it was made because it's a user-made game. I mean, a guy, Barry Doyle, liked Advanced Squad Leader back in the day, back in the 80s, realized nobody wanted to play Advanced Squad Leader that much anymore because it's too big, too complicated. It's a big 1980s kind of a game. So he says, okay, I want to put the game system on a diet. I'm going to bring back everything that was great about Advanced Squad Leader, but in a way that, a modern gaming audience can digest it, pick it up, run with it, and then make their own things for it.
Yeah.
And there's a huge community for it. You go over to Board Game Geek, there are people who make maps for it, now. I think the game was originally published, in 2007. And, 12 years later, people are still crushing out maps for it, publishing it. People are trading maps. Hey, check out this scenario I designed or whatever. People have Gurkhas now. People have, Japanese special naval landing troops. People have Martians. one of these days I want to do, I know I keep threatening this, I want to do Star Wars in Valor and Victory. I want to do, some of the big battles we see in, 4 through 6.
That would be cool.
Some of the original ground battles.
Yeah.
Just I will not make Ewok counters. That's just off the table.
Oh, come on.
Nope. I will make a Chewie counter. Chewie will be like a +3 hero, but it will be easy to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because of, and the other thing I want to do that has kind of been kicked around before, and one of these days I'm gonna, I have a weekend, nothing going on. Yeah, right. I have a weekend, nothing going on. Back in the day, 2017, I know that's not really too far back, but a couple years ago, Warren was very, very over on Tabletop. Warren was very serious about doing something with San Nazaire, and I'm like, I've got the game for it. We can do this in Valor and Victory. It would be a big map, it would be a big game, but we could totally do San Nazaire, Operation Chariot, the raid on that whole dry dock situation. Yep. We could totally do that in Valor and Victory. It would be about 100 pieces on the table. It wouldn't be a big deal. And you could do it in the right scale, the right scope. A hex in that game is usually about 20 meters. So a 2,000 foot long dry dock, big enough to hold, KMS Turpets, would fit on that map with no problem at all. We'd have to come up with something for the ships because there was a little bit of naval activity going on before that.
Sure.
But the point of the story is that system can be used for almost limitless anything post Black Powder. You could use that system for, and it's scalable. It's the right scale to maybe bring in people from other parts of wargaming, and it's very cheap. It's very accessible. It's probably the closest thing I have to a perfect wargame, and it has, because it's relatively simple, it has elbow room in the rule system for when you want to make up new rules. The game we played most recently was Royal Paris. Sorry, it was 3rd Paris versus 7th Regiment of Argentinian infantry in the Falkland Islands, one of the mountains that were there. June, I think, 14th, 1982. The problem there is that those were all night battles. And so we had to make up rules for flares, we had to make up rules for night fighting, and rules for spotting, rules for darkness, to have a battle in pitch darkness. All the land battles in the Falklands took place at night. The point to your question is the rule system is light enough to where it's got elbow room, it's got headroom left in under the hood, so to speak, so you can add stuff to it and not completely break the game or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you want to make up special rules for, we're going to do the we're going to do San Nazaire. Okay, we need rules for how the ships work and the motor torpedo boats and the German anti-aircraft guns. Okay, well, those rules aren't in Valor and Victory, but the game is simple enough where you can do that. Because the game is simple to begin with in its DNA, your special rules can be simple. And there's room in the system so your special rules don't break it.
Uh-huh.
Whereas if you try to do it in a very complicated game like, say, Panzer Leader, you're going to wind up with a game that is, number one, in order for your rules to be at the same resolution as the rest of the game, your special rules have to be complicated, and you're adding complicated special rules onto a system that's already complicated, and it blows up. I've had Panzer Leader games do that. It doesn't work. So Panzer Leader is definitely my favorite game. I think everyone knows that, but I would not call it perfect. The closest thing to a perfect game I think I have on my shelf would be something akin to Valor and Victory. There are games I like more. The Battle Group to go with miniatures, Steel Panthers to go with computers, Dark Star to go with sci-fi. But those games, I think, have a certain niche or certain flaws that say, look, this is my favorite game, but it's not a perfect game.
Sure. Gotcha. Interesting. So from my point of view, perfect game in my library. If I was talking miniatures, and this is going to get me kicked out of the modern community, for our mass battles, let's tone it to mass battles. Is Games Workshop's Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
It's a very solid rule set, and it does scale somewhat, but from a miniature standpoint, fantasy, definitely. If you're going down to squads and teams, then obviously Spectre Operations comes into play. And then Skirmish Sangan when you're getting into platoon company level, I think are those. But my perfect game, and you've already kind of discussed it, and I disagree with you on some. I think Advanced Squad Leader is probably and it's different reason for me is why I consider it the perfect game, because to me, there is so much to that game. You spend more time, honestly, I think, setting it up, getting the scenario. There's weather you can be involved. There's all these aspects. There's this whole culture and community around Advanced Squad Leader, even to this day. And for a game to stand the test of time since, what was first edition? 70?
Oh, yeah, late 70s.
Yeah. So, to still be going today by, was it Multi-Man Publishing owns the rights of it now?
They do. They do own technically the Panzer Leader.
But they call it MBT or something like that, right? Is that what it's called now?
No, it's called
or Panzer.
It's Panzer Leader Hell of Death.
Oh, okay.
Which frankly is not recommended. Maybe it's just me being a Panzer Leader, because I grew up with a regular kind of Panzer Leader for so long that any changes kind of strike me the wrong way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, other companies like Toshash Miniatures do publish parts of Panzer Leader. I don't know if they have some sort of arrangement worked out with Multiman, or Multiman doesn't know. I hope I'm not getting anybody in trouble here, but and those that Toshash Miniatures are the people who came out with Panzer Leader, or technically Panzer Blitz, for the that we've done on the stream with whatchamacallit, 1991 Desert Leader.
Oh, okay.
The Gulf War. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Yeah, the same company I think owns both games.
Okay.
I know.
Did they take over the catalog of Avalon Hill Games, or did they just pick and choose? Do you know?
No, because Avalon Hill is still a company. Avalon Hill.
Oh, come on! It really is not.
Well, it's a division of
Hasbro, right?
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a part of a part of a part of a part of a.
But they don't print real war games anymore. It's what, House on the Hill and Axis and Allies.
I was just gonna say they still make Axis and Allies.
Yeah, I mean
they make Axis and Allies for a while. Axis and Allies was a miniatures game.
Yeah.
It was a hex 15 millimeter. That's how I got into miniature gaming. That's how I got into Beasts of War. That's the reason there is an Oriskany. No, seriously, Avalon Hills, Axis and Allies, 15 millimeter miniatures. It was this weird miniatures hex kind of a hybrid game. It was like, oh, you want to play with miniatures and you like hex and counter games? Here's something that has a little bit. It was super easy. You take it to the club, you set it up. People see it's three-dimensional. They see little toy tanks, and you play games with people, and that's how you get people interested in the more advanced games, down the road.
Yeah,
it was kind of like the gateway drug. The first one's free. Come on in,
Yeah.
Kind of a dark.
You game pusher.
That's right. I'm a gamer. But that's effectively what I used it for. It looks like a miniature game. It plays like a hex and counter game, and that's how what used to recruit people.
Yeah.
And looking around for 15 millimeter miniatures for World War II on the web, that's how I ran across Beasts of War, and the rest is history. But they no longer make that. They had War at Sea. They finally shit canned that, and they still make the Axis and Allies, the board game. That is probably more famous than the hex and miniatures game. But the board game, and then they're always making new versions of it. Like there's a Axis and Allies for Normandy. There's an Axis and Allies for World War I. There's an Axis, it's basically the same game with a new board.
Mm-hmm.
But they do still produce stuff. I just, they're definitely not nearly as big as they used to be. That's for sure. The big hex and counter companies nowadays are Decision Games still makes a lot of stuff. They're always publishing in the strategy and tactics magazines. Matrix Games, I think, still makes some stuff.
Yep.
There's still some big companies out there making old school hex and counter games. Historicon was awash with that stuff. The strategy and tactics, the company, they make their own stuff in house.
Do they?
And I got a couple of Vietnam games. I got a Poland game I still need to play. There at Historicon. for ongoing projects. Yeah, they're still around. I just don't think they're obviously not nearly as big as they used to be.
Yeah.
In the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, Avalon Hill was it.
Yeah.
People talk about Games Workshop used to dominate the market. I started playing war games in 1985. Between 1992 and 93, I was part owner of a gaming store. It was 1997 before I heard of 40K and before we heard of GW. And serious, it's just not that. It was never that big a deal over here on this side of the water.
Right.
But what was BattleTech and Avalon Hill.
Yeah.
So FASA and Avalon Hill, also Victory Games, SSI, SPI, all those other companies.
Yeah, there was what was the miniatures, the fantasy miniature? Was it Reaper Miniatures back? What was that company?
They used to make a lot of D&D miniatures.
Yeah.
Ral Partha.
Ral Partha. Yeah. Back in the glory days of early. But yeah, I mean, I think my very first exposure to a war game, Avalon Hill, was Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz. And then it went from there to, and now I don't know if I've said it. I know I said it to you, Jim, but I don't know if I said it publicly, but I'm on a quest to collect every Avalon Hill title. So
that's buy a new house.
So I mean, I just got Gettysburg, I got the Bull Run in, just got that in, and Firepower just came in, and Gunfighter or Gunslinger came in, and
if you ever go to Historicon, do the casino trick.
Yeah.
Leave your wallet in the car. Because we went down to, what was it, Bob's Spaceman, whatever they called it, and it was just all this old Avalon Hill stuff. Some of it's still in the plastic.
Awesome.
It was all piled up. People were just cleaning out their garages, here, take this stuff.
Excellent.
And, some of it's, even the stuff that had been opened was in really good shape, but some of it was still in the plastic.
That would be incredible. And because I think I need to replace either my Panzer Leader or Panzer Blitz game, because when I got it, it wasn't complete, so I need to replace one of the two. So I've been thinking a lot, speaking of Historicon, because I've been painting up the exclusive mini. I was going to do that tonight but I figured we do the live broadcast, which reminds me of something else I got to talk about. But regarding Historicon, I definitely think next year SITREP needs to podcast from Historicon. The full 4 days or whatever, we can do the show from there and get some stuff going. Because I would love to get some games in and just talk to people. And I was super jealous watching you do your thing there. I can be honest with you and tell you it sucks sitting on this side of the computer screen at a convention.
That's been me 100 times.
I'm not used to. I mean, after Historicon and then us, skipping out on Gen Con this year, I'm like, oh, I've got the itch to get back and to work. So, I think we're gonna have to definitely look into doing Historicon next year.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Speaking of live shows, and this is kind of hurts me a little bit, to be honest with you. On Facebook, we had a poll going on whether you preferred a recorded show or a live show. Now, granted, we didn't get a lot of responses, so our N is a little low, but everybody who voted for a recorded show.
Really?
Yeah. I was surprised.
On a live show.
Yeah. So, okay, you spoke, we listened, so we will go back to a recorded format for the podcast. I think in a lot of ways it's probably the smart move, because we can tend to get more people on, on that, but that's okay. We'll continue to do hobby night on Thursday nights. I'm rearranged my work schedule for my second job so I can make sure I get in and take some shows, and then Jim, when you want to do a show, we can kick back and forth, and Chris is getting his home studio set up in his new house, so hopefully he'll be able to start doing some stuff too. So that's all going on. So let's get back to the perfect game. So we've talked about what we have or played. If you were to create the perfect game, what in your mind would be the perfect game? What kind of game? Is it hex encounter? Is it miniature based? Is it a combination thereof? You know, what to you would be the perfect game? What would be the setting or theater or genre? And just go from there and just kind of spitball and kind of give us your. If I gave you an unlimited budget and said you don't have to work at your job anymore to create the perfect game, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, I design game like people have different kinds of hobbies. Some people like to play games. Some people like to go to conventions, like to paint miniatures. A big part of my hobby is designing games. I've designed 50 games. Well, not 50. I've designed 30 games in my life. You only hear about 3 or 4 of them because only 3 or 4 of them are any good. I never said I was a good designer.
Yeah, but think about all the good designers, how many games they've designed and what didn't make it. It's like anything else.
So it's tough. I mean, it's kind of a hypothetical scenario. So again, what I've learned is, in building all this stuff is, okay, what's my audience? Now, this might not apply to your exact question, but okay, I've got 4 or 5 people, here at my dining room table or whatever. We're going to game every week or something. We're going to game on Saturdays. Or now that we're on, now that we're on the internet, now that we're on the web, we got guys in, I got like my own little crew going, over there,
sure do.
On the web. And okay, what do you guys want? Do you guys want to do this? Do you guys want to do that? And then, okay, sit down and design the game for that specific purpose with some sort of scalability. And this might sound a little strange coming from a wargamer, but with some kind of RPG element. This is one of the things that's made Darkstar such a sticker, is you don't just have starships and they shoot each other and they blow up and somebody wins. Whether you win or lose, obviously if you win you get more, but if you lose you still get some. You get these little campaign points, and you go into a bank, and when you get so many you can upgrade, and your captain gets a name, and before you know it, he's got a little personality and this little battle group of guys that always fight together. Everyone who plays Darkstar with us on the weekends plays the same ships over and over and over again. They're building up, for lack of a better term, XP, and they're leveling up, and they're coming up with little backstories. We do the same thing with the game we made up, the game I made up for fighter combat in World War II, Aces High. You could do it with miniatures. It doesn't use hexes, but right now we're just using counters. And almost like little simplified BattleTech sheets with little bubbles or whatever, and you get hit and you get shot down. And if your pilot survives, he gets a kill or whatever, and you buy points and you level up. You can increase your skills. So as far as like the perfect war game, I have found, be specific. I'll try to keep my answer a little shorter this time.
No,
be specific. Be specific toward your audience and what your intended target is. I think too many games out there are trying to do too much. This is especially brutal with Black Powder era games and medieval games and ancient games. The further back in history you get, the worse it gets. Because history becomes more and more blurry. It really doesn't, but people's knowledge of it generally does. And so you get games like, it's ancients. You can do everything from Charlemagne back to Alexander the Great. I'm like, no, you can't. War, that's 1,200 years of history, and war does change. Just because you don't know about it doesn't mean that So I think some games are a little too generic. I like specific games that try and do a certain thing, balanced against some kind of scalability. So if you want, like we were saying before with Valor and Victory, scalability and adaptability. I know your audience, so that your game, when you're designing your game, people actually want to play it.
Yeah.
And again, probably the weirdest thing is work in some kind of weird RPG / campaign mechanic in there, so that people will start to tell like a narrative story with your game. That also helps you bring in the RPG crowd, which is obviously a big resource. So it's almost like an RPG wargame hybrid. For the perfect kind of a game. especially with the really small scale games like Skirmish, which Sangan, which obviously has a big RPG like element into it.
Yeah.
Games like that. A lot of people were talking about playing with Vietnam. They want to start like a Vietnam campaign where it's like, I want to get my guys through a tour of duty. I was talking with some guys at Historicon, actually a signals intelligence veteran from Afghanistan. And he was like, I was telling him about our asymmetrical victory conditions in Valorant Victory Vietnam, where the Americans or / free world cannot fire into civilians. And he's like, see, I don't like that rule where you can't fire into civilians. They said, if you can fire into civilians, you can, but you take a huge penalty. I was like, okay, let me back up and explain what I explained that too quickly. Yes, it's prohibitive. You're going to lose the game, but more of your guys are going to live. And he was like, that's what I was talking about. You're in a firefight. There are civilians in this hooch in which there's also an RPG nest or a douche or God knows what else. And okay, in victory points, because when you shoot at civilians, you're you're going to lose, victory point wise.
Right.
But that douche is silenced, or that RPG is silenced. More of your guys are getting home. And yeah, you've pretty much flushed that game victory point wise, but now more of your guys have made it to the next game, and the next game, and the next game. And maybe you have one game a month for 12 months, and that's your tour. And, the real victory, the campaign victory, is how many of your guys made it through the tour. Things like that. That's a lot of work, not only for the designer, but also for the player. It's a big commitment for the players to really get that payoff. You don't just sit down and play a game, you play 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
But we've even experimented with that in Panzerleader. My friend Alex and I played Großdeutschland division. We picked out little battalions within a German division in Russia. And we said, we're going to fight from Kursk in the middle of 43 to pretty much Bagration at the end and middle of 44. We're going to play through 1 year of Großdeutschland's history, and we're going to see if we can survive on the German side. And it wasn't easy. And as you would win, you would get points, and then you would buy more units and upgrade your order of battle, and things like that. It's a lot of bit of paperwork, and I know that's kind of a dirty word in wargaming. Unfortunately, I don't really agree with that, but that's where you get your narrative. So those would be the kind of things that I would try to work into a perfect game if I was designing it.
Okay. Wow. Okay. What would be my perfect game? I don't know. That's a tough question when you think about it. For me, it has to be one that grabs my attention and holds my attention. I fall victim to shiny syndrome a lot, where somebody who does really good PR makes a game look really, really great, and you get this game and you're all excited to play it, and you start playing it and you're realizing it's not that good, so
Right.
I have shelves full of games that are like, it's not that good. It doesn't capture the sense of excitement. I'm excited when it's like Christmas morning. You get that cool toy, you play for it until you're just bored of it, and then you're looking for the next big thing. I need something that captures my attention, holds my attention. And how do you do that in modern times? I don't know if our lives have gotten more complicated or just busier or just too many distractions. Everybody's competing for people's time. And I think the perfect game would be one that's flexible enough that you can easily take from one genre, one theater of conflict to the next, and have a little bit of hobby in it. I do like the idea of, personally, my game would be 3D printed.
Okay.
Reason being, I just got another 3D printer. I got a resin printer, so I'm learning this, and I've been looking for 10 mil or 6 mil files for armor and stuff, to do a 6 or 10 mil game. And there's not that many out there, so it's like but I strongly believe, and I know this has been spoken about in other shows, that the future of wargaming, miniature gaming, is 3D printing. It's not going to be people making the miniatures, it's them creating the files to sell for you to print at home. So
Right.
I strongly believe that's the way we're going to go. There's people out there that will disagree with that, but I truly feel that's how it's going to end up going. Just from my very first 3D printer, which I got 4 years ago now, maybe, yeah, about 4 years ago, to the one I just received this week, the technology is incredible. So the changes, it's like VCRs, to
Oh God.
DVDs,
Yeah.
remember that?
Oh yeah.
Betamax, remember Betamax?
Vaguely.
Well,
Um,
if you were a porn aficionado, you knew Betamax. That's what I was told, because all the good porn was on Betamax. So whatever, I don't know that, but that's what, if you read any history about it, that's what they say.
I was
So
watching a TV show that said the opposite.
really,
But yeah, they said that the fact that like back in the early '80s, these two formats were in direct competition, and
yes.
it was neck and neck. And part of what put VHS over the top was expanding into that market.
Okay, well maybe I got it backwards then, but
Okay.
yeah, but so perfect game would be one that's easily accessible, one that you can grow with, that be, I guess I'm trying to recapture kind of the feeling. I started playing D&D back in early 80s. I'm talking 80, 81 or
Right.
thereabouts. So, first edition to second edition AD&D. Um, and I can remember spending hours and hours creating modules, scenarios, adventures.
Yeah.
Because I ended up being the DM a couple times, or a lot of times actually. And I remember creating characters hours upon hours, just creating characters. It was like I lived and breathed this game.
Yep.
And then I found this game with big killer stompy robots, and they had clans, and
Oh
stuff like
yeah.
that. Um, so we played that, but I mean, D&D has always been my first love, and then anything TSR put out, I was all about, Indiana Jones, the role-playing game,
Right.
which kind of stunk, to be honest with you. I do have the original box still, but and then James Bond role-playing game. So, but anyways, I do agree with you that there should be some RPG aspect to the game as well, because you need to get invested in the game, and what better
Yeah,
way?
like it's some way that you're the biggest scale we've done was battalions. The smallest scale might be a squad, but
Uh-huh.
that right there is a big group. That's from 8 guys to 800 guys. That's a lot of leeway there.
Yeah.
But where your force can evolve and grow, like even if it's an individual ship in Darkstar or a squadron of planes in Aces High or whatever, you get a bunch of guys or a bunch of characters together, and they go into combat. And okay, maybe you have to make up like the war, or if you're doing historically, you just set it in historical event or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
just letting your players build up their characters. Okay, you have so many points, like Darkstar. I'll just use that as an example. You
Yep.
get so many points, you get to buy something off of a list. Here's the list. And just by selecting what you buy, you're developing your character,
Yeah.
or at the very least, developing your crew. Like, is your guy cautious? He's going to buy more shielding. Oh, the hell with caution. I'm like some of Jen's ships. I'm going to buy more accurate guns. If I kill the other guy first, I don't need shielding. I'm going to buy more speed. You can't kill me if you can't catch me. Before you know it, your ship or your crew or whatever is evolving, and you almost trick the players into developing their own narrative. And if they're going into your game, if they're like a lot of ex-RPGers or current RPGers, they like narrative anyway, then it's like a win-win. They're like, I don't have to be tricked into looking for narrative. I want that narrative. And he can name every single thing about his captain except the captain's name. I mean, he hasn't thought of a name for that guy yet, but he knows everything about him because he knows what stuff he's bought. He's helped design his own ships. He's, like he goes in the Excel spreadsheet and we work together and we actually built the ship. So he's got his backstory, but he's not really an RPG guy. So it's like, oh, I don't really have a name for my guy yet, but we know everything else about him. I could draw a picture of this guy at this point. But again, it's just a narrative that you, even if your player is not a big time role playing gamer,
Uh-huh.
he'll get pulled into it that way, I think.
Excellent. Well, I am kind of embarrassed. We've had some people checking in, and Dennis said, "Greetings from Kansas," and he is sitting making plans in motion for HysteriaCon for next year. So, Dennis, we definitely want to get you out there, and get you at the table Dennis has been a big supporter of us from the beginning, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we definitely need to get him. We need to. How OTT, because that's where Jim and I met, was through OTT, Beast of War. It's still hard for me to say OTT. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Beast of War just rolls off the tongue. But Jim and I, that's how we met, and a lot of our core group still is from there, and then obviously we've grown from that. But like when we went to Salute, we did backstager meetups, and so I definitely want to do something like that, a meetup, an operator meetup. So our SITREP operators, we're going to do a meetup. We'll do some good old swapping military stories. Let's get some gaming in. We'll have to come up with the perfect game for that, Jim.
Yeah. Honestly, I think, at least for me, I think that would be Valorant Victory. You can,
Yeah.
For what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And here are the reasons. Number one, you can pack it in a suitcase.
Yeah.
Number two, it's the same kind of level that most people are used to playing. It's super easy. You can learn it in 20 minutes. And if everyone knows the rules, you can get through a reasonably decent-sized game in like an hour or two.
There you go. Perfect.
As much as I would love to, and I've done it. I've taken Panzer Leader on the road. Me and Bruce Lee and Damon had a huge Panzer Leader game in the free time after the Bolt Action boot camp. I made that map with extra big counters, extra big map hex grid, and I put all my counters on the back of Scrabble tiles.
Oh, wow.
So they stack up like poker chips, and they're super big and easy to handle, but you need bigger hexes for that or whatever. That was a great game. But I don't know if that would be the perfect game for what you're talking about. I try to be objective in when people ask me these kind of things, and so there's my favorite, and then there's the best. And I'm a big boy, and I know that those aren't always the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So my favorite would be Panzer Leader. Obviously, it always will be. I'm going to be buried with a box of Panzer Leader in my casket. Well, that way when I get to the afterlife, I can start gaming with people.
Wait a minute, you don't think the big man in the big chair doesn't have his own copy?
No, he better. He's supposed to be perfect. Yeah, I don't know if that would be the best venue for. The people I played with at the boot camp had some background in it, but to take to a big event like that, yeah, we could. We have to come up with some more modern versions of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've got Vietnam, Lebanon, and Falklands for now. We could push that forward into Gulf War. I don't know if that big infantry battles are really a thing. Gulf War is more of a tank thing.
Right. Well, but, everybody loves their tanks,
Yeah, but for tanks, Valorant Victory is not the best for tanks.
No. How long would you say it takes for an average game of Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader?
Oh, if everyone knows the rules,
yep.
3 at least, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
So what time did you guys technically get done broadcasting and stuff this year when you were at Historicon?
At Historicon?
Yeah.
Justin took us off the clock at like 4 or 5. He would render and post until like 6 or 7. And then we would walk around and try just look at games or whatever. I actually got into one game. That was the best fun I had at Historicon. I didn't even make it on camera until God knows when, 2 a.m. sometimes. The halls would technically shut down at midnight, but then we went down to the pub. I never made it to the pub because I ran across the guys from Black Powder Studios.
Oh, did you? Cool.
Yeah, just right out in the street. We stood there on the corner and just shot the shit for 5 hours. Until people were handing us money on the street. They're like, you poor people, here, have some cash. We're like, no, we're not homeless. We're just sitting here talking. But it's officially, I think it closed down around 11 or midnight. But people were, we were done way before that as far as official work goes.
Well, I'm just thinking, timing wise, if we did show and then had a gaming night, members, anybody that wanted to participate, we try to do a big membership drive before Historicon, obviously, and get as many people, to participate. And I thought, Valorant Victory, I love the games that you and I have played.
Okay.
That the Vietnam game we played, I really enjoyed that.
if we want to actually get a table at Historicon, we should probably start the wheels on that now.
I will reach out to the guys
Okay.
because I would like SITREP to have an actual table where I don't know the setup because I haven't been there yet, and I know
Yeah.
I don't know. Is the vendor hall the best place to have
Well,
a table where we can live broadcast as the show's going on, or where do you think's the best place for that?
We had a little media suite, but nobody was really streaming live.
Yeah.
They didn't really have anything for that. There were 2 floors of gaming tables, and you have to have those booked out in advance.
Yeah.
They what are you running? Let me. They actually vet you pretty hard.
Yeah.
They want to know. They want to make sure you're not running. Some. That said, there were some pretty cheesy looking tables there.
Yeah.
There were some really bad tables there. So I don't know how hard they look at it, but I don't know. It's like, are you a member? Are you not a member? Honestly, I think the HGMS or whatever they call it, take themselves a little too seriously, to be perfectly honest. But then underneath that, there was a big, I can't remember the name of the hall. There's a huge hall, and that was divided right down the middle. One side was the vendor hall, where they just had people, playing, selling stuff. That shuts down firm at 6. And you can't walk in there. We had press passes. They wouldn't let us in there. And we wanted to go in there to shoot a segment. They escorted us in because, people have their merchandise there.
Yeah, of course.
They put a blanket over it, but there's, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But then, on the other side of this little divide is the tournament hall. That might be our best bet. There were tons of tables there that nobody was using.
Okay.
There were some tables that it's very simple, those old government GP, particle board tables, but there's 50 of them in there or whatever,
Yeah.
That seemed a lot less formal as far as, space. And there were some very, very, I don't want to say low key, but the guys were really into it. So it wasn't like a casual game, but not everything was on a huge, 28 millimeter, table that took some guy a year to build or whatever. It took him 3 vans to carry it here. It was, some very simple setup kind of stuff. I know they do look very hard at it is the HMGS, Historical Miniature Gaming Society. So we'd have to probably ask about any kind of, if we wanted to feature like a Hex Encounter game or whatever. But I know they're mostly into miniatures.
Right.
So we'd have to figure out a way to make it a miniature game.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we just had a member meetup, we could do that after hours somewhere. It doesn't have to be in that hall. We'll figure it out. I promise. I know we can.
We got plenty of time. The only thing I would think, if you wanted a table, we should probably reach out to somebody soon. Other than that, we got 10 more months or something, to work on that part.
Well, don't you worry. I'm going to write an email right now as we speak to my buddy. I'm going to reach out to Chris, and we'll get us squared away right now. Dennis is in full agreement of a meetup. He thinks that would be extremely cool. So we will definitely.
Are these comments on YouTube? Because I'm not seeing them on YouTube.
Yes, they are.
Okay. I apologize if I'm not responding to anybody. I do not see the comments.
Are you looking at the most recent live? Remember, we had a breakdown, so you have to go back in and look for the live one and find it.
Yeah. Every time I log into it, it says
stream
starts at 4:35.
Okay.
And then I see no.
You don't see my comment on there? Hello, Dennis, and all that good stuff?
I see no comments. I see the chat window, but no comments.
Weird. It's interesting.
No worries.
Okay.
If somebody says something, let me know, and I'll respond.
So I'll reach out to the guys over there about that, and I'm trying to see if I have it up easily enough. I don't, but I'll find it. I'll reach out to them, and I'll start the wheels. I'll start greasing the wheels and see what we can come up with on that. Because I think, I'm not looking for anything fancy, and I don't want 1 million people there. I would just like a small group of dedicated gamers that we can sit down and play some Valor and Victory. Maybe, bring out the mini table for some Spectre or something, or Ultra Combat. Bring out the Ultra Combat Modern, because I know Chris is part of that, from the Phalanx Consortium.
Yeah.
So they'll have that all full blown by then, next year. So we could run some couple quick games of that, have some drinks, that whole 9 yards, and just have a good time. Some of the best backstager meetups that I participated in were the casual ones. We had the Team Yankee one when we went to,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
when we went to what is now the courthouse, but I can't remember what they call it now. But I tell you what, I'm not very happy with what it's turned out to be. But we had a
No,
great group.
nobody goes there anymore.
Yeah.
Jerry's found a few other spots that we go to.
So
You have more fun at.
But yeah, so I think we could definitely do something like that and get some people out. Hopefully we get Chris to go, and maybe we can get Ralph to come over from over the pond and, go that, if we get enough notice, we can start planning, I guess is what it comes down to. So I definitely would like to work on that. That sounds really great time. Speaking of Jerry and all that, did you see, I don't know how much you're following over on OTT, did you see they're going to have some kind of game day for the Korean bolt action game?
I think I saw, like, you know what, I got an email about it.
Okay.
One of those automated emails,
Yeah.
like the historical gamer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw something in there. I haven't been on the site in a while. We sort of let Poland kind of.
Of course.
We pretty much wrapped up Poland. I hadn't really been on there that much since then. But I saw some. I didn't know if it was like a boot camp or like a tournament or a.
Yeah, I thought it was a boot camp. I'm like, well, if it's a boot camp, I'm going, But it sounds like it's just a one-day event.
Okay.
So it's not like a real boot camp, because I know Andy and I, we still are chatting back and forth, and we are definitely going to do these painting videos. So, we're just trying to find a time that's a good excuse to get over to Ireland to do it. So I thought, well, maybe if we're going to be for bolt action, but, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I still, I know we talked about doing like the Weird War weekend around Halloween.
Yep.
I'm telling you, I can't believe it's already almost October. Time has just gotten away from me. And I honestly don't know what I've been doing for the last few months, because I'm working on a TV project for a company, for a YouTube project for them. And we were supposed to have it up and running by this month, and we're still in the planning stages. Things don't happen like it's just like I'm getting pulled in a million different directions. But I definitely want to get some membership stuff, gaming going on here. I know Chris wants to do some Ultra Combat Modern, and I think that'd be a good one. I know I still want to do stuff with Black Site Studios for terrain, and I definitely want to get Matt and, oh my God, I'm still losing my mind. Steven from Spectre. To get something going on over in Ireland. It's just a matter of coordinating everything. So, when you're working 2 jobs, going to school and everything else, it's just kind of, there's not enough hours in the day. I need 36 hours in a 24-hour day. So it's not easy.
Been there.
It's,
I've been there.
The life of a content creator.
No, it's not easy.
So no, it isn't. So speaking of content, I got to give you props.
Okay.
The Vietnam series, you knocked it out of the park.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Have you been checking out some of the comments that have been on the YouTube posting?
Yeah, I've been watching them on YouTube and on Tabletop, but I don't see them on Facebook.
Okay.
So.
I tell you what, there were some really nice comments on YouTube.
Yep.
And I think you've really set a standard for some quality programming when it comes to this kind of stuff. People are obviously, we're kind of tongue in cheek, but they, this should be required viewing in a classroom. I honestly agree with that, and I'm not just tooting our own horn.
They were being tongue in cheek. They were being serious.
I mean, not because it's our own programming and stuff, but it's really educational. I learn a lot from it. I think you need the official title of the SITREP's official war historian. So.
All right, I'll take it.
All right. So Dennis says the Korean thing is a one day and is limited to 10 people. What?
Yeah, it's like a mini camp.
Yeah.
It's not a boot camp, it's a bit camp.
Yeah, a bit camp. Oh, so well, that's kind of sucky because I could have brought my MASH guys.
Oh no.
Oh well. we'll do something over here. But talking about Op Center, you have really set the bar on that, and I know it's a ton of work, and it puts you under a lot of pressure to push out that quality programming. And I know you're going to be taking a break
Yep.
for a few months, until the next series. We talked, and just keep continuously churning out just burns you out, and that's not fair because we're doing this because we love the hobby and we want you to have fun as just as much as you creating the content. So
And to be perfectly honest, I mean, people who come out with like a show like the Op Center, I've clicked around other, like there's a bunch of podcasts I watch, there's a bunch of YouTubers I follow or whatever, and that's literally their job.
yeah,
They do this, and that comes with its own pressures. Like they have to get 1,000 views in the first 5 minutes, or they're out again, whatever.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's 10 hours of work a day, and hour of commuting, an Op Center episode takes a week to do. That's if you know the material,
yeah.
like already. There's a little bit of research in there just to make sure I spell people's names right or whatever. But like, if we get into like some of the stuff that's been requested, like I literally have to learn about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were talking about, just to grab one out of the thin air. People were talking about Afghanistan, 79 to 89, the Russians in Afghanistan.
Oh, okay.
I could talk about that for one episode, but to do four, first of all, we have to do them in groups of 4 or 5 at least. Because you build a certain amount of stuff for an Op Center, and that's like a week of work. Now, if you're doing just one episode, okay, now you've got your basics done. Now spend another week making the Op Center. Well, you're already late. So if you make a whole bunch of stuff up front, like your assets, now you can use those assets through like 4 or 5 episodes or whatever. So doing one-offs sounds like it would be easier. I assure you it would not. It would actually be 10 times harder to do one-offs. Unless we change the format and it's just like me talking into a mic and maybe showing like 5 or 6 slides, which I don't know if that dip in quality would reflect badly on it. But to get back to the original point, if we wanted to do one about, the Soviets in Afghanistan, it would be like a good month of research before I felt competent enough to, be the, SITREP historian or whatever. I mean,
right.
If you're going to, even if it's only a playing around kind of a title, if you're going to try to live up to that, you kind of know your shit.
Yeah.
Because this goes out to a lot of people, and our audience knows what's up. Our audience aren't dummies by any stretch of the imagination. And if you try to put together, crappy content, they're gonna
call you out on it.
Or even worse, inaccurate content. Even if they're polite enough not to call you out on it, number one, they're gonna lose faith in you. And number two, that's just not cool to the community.
Yeah.
Because our community is small but fierce. They do support us, so we got to make sure that we, if we do something, it's got to be good.
I agree. And I think, like I said, it sets the bar for programming for this group, this podcast, our channel. And I need to start working on my terrain because I'm going to start doing a terrain program, and I want to make sure it's top quality so we're not shortcutting it. I watch the Op Center, your work. And then I look at, I don't know how much YouTube stuff you watch, but there's a guy called, I think his name's, is it Luke Town? He does Boulder Creek Railway, and it's all about realistic terrain building. I mean, amazing stuff. So it's like, I don't think I'm going to get to that level right now, but I also have a reputation within the wargaming community, from Mike's work on Beast of War and stuff. So there is that standard that I still have to meet because I am still associated with them, and I literally have a piece of paper on my wall in my studio, our video studio. It says WWLD. What would Lloyd do? Because anytime I have put out content or done anything that's not up to Lloyd's standard, I don't get a tongue lashing, but I will get stuff from Lloyd going, that's not good enough. So literally, I have something that says WWLD. So, Lloyd is a perfectionist, and rightfully so. He's the quiet one behind the scenes, but he's actually not the quiet one. He's just as goofy as Warren, just in a different way. So, we want to maintain high quality standards. So, have you started thinking about what you might do down the road for your next series? Or
Yeah, there's a couple in the pipe.
yeah,
But I don't know if I'm going. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I could
okay,
do War on Terror relatively quickly because I've got miniatures for it
uh-huh,
built, ready to go. I've got, in 1 to 72, I've got the armies built. What I really want to do, sort of, or one of the other ideas, and this is slightly different from War on Terror, is 1991 Gulf War.
okay.
And before I do that, I have to buy some miniatures, build them, paint them, or whatever. So that's like a month before I even start,
What scale
building
would
it.
you do those miniatures? Would you do them
Oh,
at?
I know. Not only do I know the scale, I know the box set. I would go to Battlefronts.
Oh, okay.
Always the biggest fan of your games, but I love your freaking miniatures. I will defend your miniatures to my dying day. I want to get Ryan's Leathernecks
Okay.
for Team Yankee. They have Humvees, they have LAV-25s, they have the old M60s with the ERA armor on there,
Okay.
and never mind that 4-color NATO merd crap or whatever. I'm gonna do that stuff in the desert.
Desert.
I'm gonna build a 1991 Desert War. I'm gonna do El Kafji.
Okay. Well, Jim, send me a list because we do have a little bit of a budget now that we have our official sponsor, Black Site Studios, so we might be able to get that
Oh,
stuff sent
okay.
out to you. So, send me a list and we'll see what we can do. So speaking of our sponsor, I'm just going to do a quick plug for them. Make sure you're checking out Black Site Studios. They're pre-colored terrain, MDF. They have amazing stuff, and they're now doing a lot of their terrain in 10 mil. I think it's 10 mil. Um, Now I'm going to sound like a dummy because I swear it's 10 mil. And Dennis will probably correct me here in a second. So let me pull them up while we're talking. But yeah, so check out Black Site Studio and give them some love and let them know you heard about them from us. So yeah, well, let's definitely look into that for you. So, if that's something you really want to do.
Um, Tentatively,
Okay.
yes. Again, I have to literally. It's not even at the planning stage yet. I have to buy the miniatures. I have to get the miniatures shipped to me, and I have to build and paint them, and then that's way down the road. But
Yeah.
it's definitely let's put it in the possibility box.
Okay.
Strong possibility box.
15
Um,
mil. They're doing it in 15 mil. So yeah.
okay, yeah, 10 mil MDFs. I don't know that much about MDF, but MDF has to be a certain width, right? So
Uh-huh.
10 mil sounded like it was going to be kind of small for MDF, but I'm sure they're the experts.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as off centers go, yeah, those were the immediate ones.
Okay.
But we've had other suggestions, some of them more likely than others. Obviously, if we do War on Terror, we wouldn't do the other. We wouldn't do 2 Afghanistan episodes.
Yeah.
So we'd either do either one or the other, as far as the Soviets in Afghanistan or the Americans in Afghanistan / Iraq War on Terror.
Uh-huh.
Ukraine would be another one. Be definitely be. I've already got the armies for that. I got the armies. I got the terrain. It just be whether or not my research for that one went up to 2015, and then I kind of got out of touch. I'd have to get refreshed with it.
Uh-huh.
Like as far as how much that war is even still going on. I mean, I know it's in the news very much right now, sadly, but let's not start down that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's stuff that would be number one. I'm fairly knowledgeable on already, and number two, I have some miniatures for because I just don't want to go to Wikipedia and put up a bunch of images that people
Sure.
have already seen.
Yeah.
And then number three, I got to be slightly careful. Modern war is always going to be a little bit of a minefield. You got to be a little careful.
It is.
We've had suggestions, not suggestions, but ideas thrown around about the Rhodesian Bush War, and I'm like,
yeah.
That one makes me a little nervous.
It's a touchy subject. I mean, there was a lot, there's a lot of racial. I mean, think about it. It truly was a racial war in a lot of aspects. Ethnic cleansing. There's accusations of that.
I have the right vehicles. I could do the Balkans War in the 1990s. That would be a scary one. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you guys out there, whether you're listening to us live or when this goes out as a recording, if you have ideas, post them in the comments. Let us know what you think. Um, I phew, there's a lot there. I mean, Ukraine's a good one. You know, outside of Rhodesia, there's a lot of activity going on in Africa. You know,
Oh, Africa's, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally still a hotbed of conflict. So I mean, there's just so much you could do. I don't know. So yeah, I definitely think
And
whatever
then,
you
and
whatever you
then
come up with is going to be awesome. Let's just put it that way.
once, this might be way down the road, but maybe like some sort of hypothetical, maybe like find a way to get the community more engaged in one.
Ooh, yeah.
As in, okay, we're going to do an op center, but this op center is going to be like everyone talks about Harold Coyle and Team Yankee,
Uh-huh.
which is sort of a great book, which is fine because he
It's
didn't
good
really make
reading.
up.
If you take it for what it is, a story, it's good reading. If you take out
It's good reading. Go ahead.
the historical, you got to remember he was an armor officer. But I know for you need that historical accuracy. You need the real to an average Joe. Even I enjoy reading that book. I just read it again not too long ago.
Yeah.
Because one, I'm not an armor person at all. So I really don't know much about armor. So you could tell me they had a kitchen in the freaking thing, and I wouldn't believe that. I'm not that stupid. But
Even the tank turret, he's perfect. He's
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, he was a major in armor. What am I
yeah,
going to do? Wag my finger at him?
yeah.
I did 4 years in supply. I can tell you what the inside of a Marine Corps warehouse looks like. I mean, it's again, this isn't a bad thing about him, but as far as a possible like thing, and we might even do this on our weekend games, is Harold Coyle got started with Team Yankee, and he was so like new to writing novels or whatever.
Yeah.
He just straight out, I don't want to say he stole because he fully admitted it, but he borrowed the setting from Sir John Hackett. And Sir John Hackett wrote that book a full 10 to 12 years before.
Was that Chieftain?
That is Third World War in Europe, 1985.
Oh, okay.
I've got a copy. I'm looking at a copy of it right now.
Okay.
That is my favorite kind of historical fiction.
Uh-huh.
It's the World War Z model. You ever read World War Z by Mike Brooks?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've read it. No.
Okay. It's obviously a make-believe book, but it's written as if it was history. So this book comes out, quote unquote, in the early 2000s, talking about the Great War. This is one of the first histories written of the war that took place in 1985. And it's written as a history. And it's written in that format. There's one about if the Allies lost in Normandy. There's one about if the Confederates won at Gettysburg. These are historical books about battles that never took place. It's true alternate history, and it's presented as such. It's written in that tone.
Yeah.
With that level of detail. So that's the book that Sir John Hackett wrote. This was a former, Northag commander, or I'm sorry, not even that. He was commander of all NATO ground forces or something. I mean, he was like the top guy in the late 70s. So there is no authority higher than him. But he's writing what was for him 10 years in the future. And so he made some guesses, the most educated guesses possible on the planet, but they were still guesses. Harold Coyle grabbed that and used that wholesale as his larger setting in which he put his small tank company, Team Yankee, story in. So he's his own writer, obviously, when he's doing his tank turret stuff, how that team works, how that battalion works. He's friends with the S3, but he hates the S2, and that whole thing. I've seen that stuff firsthand. So that's all him. But as far as like what's going on in the greater, not to spoil how the book turns out, but what's going on in the whole world or whatever, that's all another writer. Now that's Harold Coyle's first book. Then he writes 2 more novels. He's still writing novels now, but his next 2 big novels are actually kind of my favorites, are the ones that come after Team Yankee. That's Bright Star and Sword Point. And that's theoretical U.S. versus Soviets. Let's throw down. All the gloves are off. We're going to town for real. A Bright Star is based on the Bright Star exercises we still hold with Egypt every year. Egypt is one of the biggest military powers in Africa. So you have a huge war going on between Libya and Egypt, 2 enemies that absolutely do not get along. Of course, Libya was still like a full country back in those days. Libya backed up by the Soviets, Egypt by the United States, and so now you have a Soviet and American full-scale Team Yankee style tank battles over some of the same battlefields that the Desert Rats used to fight over, back along the Libyan-Egyptian border. And then Sword Point is the same thing in Iran. Soviets invade Iran, the Americans counter-invade. Basically, it's the Gulf War before the Gulf War happened, but it takes place in Iran instead of Iraq, and the Soviets are involved. It's theoretical. It's the same. It's like Team Yankee in the desert is what it really is. And I honestly think that's where where Battlefront got its ideas for oil war.
Huh.
Because again, it's Harold Coyle, it's Team Yankee, but it's in the desert.
Yeah.
And it's all completely theoretical. It's all, So something like that, where we have like a big campaign somewhere besides Team Yankee, because we don't want to step on, anyone else's, stuff. A big, okay, I know Op Center is mostly historical, but we could grab something in the modern era, have it be theoretical. That way the players can influence the outcome. We're not slaves to the historical outcome.
Right, yeah.
And, who knows where that could lead. I don't know how the logistics of that could work, but I get the feeling that sooner or later people are going to get tired of hearing me blather on about history and being lectured at. So how about I don't lecture people anymore? How about you guys get involved and we do some sort of campaign-driven op center sometime in early 2020?
That sounds awesome.
I have no idea how that's going to work, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
So I'm sticking with it for now.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I appreciate that. That sounds really good. And, we're coming up onto the end of our program, but I wanted to talk about one other thing that's not modern related. And that was you and I still, and I know when you have the time to do this, Jim, I know you got a busy schedule. I would definitely like to still get a game in of Operation Market Garden.
That wouldn't be that big a deal.
So I think we can, it's the 75th anniversary. It just, what's today, the 26th?
Yeah.
So it just ended 75 years ago.
Yep.
So I think I would still like to do it. What do you think, Nijmegen or Arnhem?
Well, those are your two choices. Do you like tanks or do you like infantry?
I mean, obviously I'm a member of the 82nd, so Nijmegen.
There you go.
But I do totally respect the British Paras and how they held out in Arnhem.
I would kind of stick to my original suggestions, and we don't have to do both. We would pick one or the other. If we wanted to do Arnhem, we totally do Valor and Victory. If we wanted to do Nijmegen, we do that in Panzerleader. In fact, that scenario over the Vol River has been designed. Somebody out there has it. Yeah.
Well, if that's something you're interested in doing, I am.
The original 20s scenarios of Panzerleader in the box. 1974. I think 4 of them are Market Garden.
Are they really?
And I don't. Yeah. Well, you don't have that many battles to pick from. It's Normandy, Market Garden, and then Bulge, and you're done. Really. Later on, people went back and they did, the Champagne Country, the Aerocorps battles. There's a few other things. Operation Varsity at the very end for Paraleader and things like that. I think it was like 17th. I can't even remember the division's name. But, the last big airborne operation of World War II. But, yeah, there's definitely possibilities. But Arnhem is mostly an infantry battle in close quarters. I think the Germans brought in some tanks at the end. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Nijmegen has mostly infantry, but also, like, the British, I think the Irish Guards were up there with tanks trying to support 82nd Airborne. I know they did reach them. It's whether or not they crossed the Vol River and actually, that's where things got very dicey. And then they didn't push through Nijmegen or all the way through it or something like that. And hence they never actually reached, obviously I'd have to brush up on it a little bit, but they never actually reached Arnhem because of what, they got hung up right around that river.
Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, if you're up for it, I'm definitely up for a game of that. So yeah, I think we to pay respect to what happened. Many.
This weekend is a little tight. I have to.
Well, no, I don't. Saturday. I'm not putting the pressure. It's Thursday, for God's sake. I'm not expecting you to do something for this weekend. That's crazy.
I remember who you're talking to.
I know.
But I do have to work Saturday a little bit for end of quarter. But next weekend, actually this weekend, is still technically open for Sunday, and next weekend is wide open. So,
Well, you tell me what works for your schedule, and I will be there.
all
And
right,
I'll
cool.
bring a few friends
All right, sounds like a
on
plan.
YouTube land and Facebook
There
and
we go.
such. So
Awesome.
you want to do it next Sunday? Would that give you enough time to?
Yeah, certainly.
All right, let's plan for next Sunday.
Do next Sunday. If infantry is if yeah, let's go with Valor and Victory since you did the Vietnam game.
Yep.
And so you're more refreshed on those rules. And then would you want to do 82nd Airborne or would you want to do British Paris?
How about you surprise me?
Okay.
Let's go in with the big surprise, like we're jumping into combat. I'd say it was a night jump, but it really wasn't. It was a day jump by the time they got done screwing everything up. So, yeah, surprise me. I will handle it either way.
All right, cool. We had pretty good success with our British Paris last week, albeit in the Falklands, but yeah,
They're paratroopers. You're always going to have success. Well, okay, I say that as we're talking about Arnhem. So,
yeah,
right. But you know what? It wasn't the Paras' fault.
It's the exception that proves the rule, right?
It wasn't truly the Paras' fault.
Oh,
Those guys held out to they could no longer hold. I mean, they literally held, follow the thing, hold until relieved, and they were so close to getting to relieved. They just had nothing else to fight with,
Yeah.
They were down to fighting with entrenching tools and whatever else they could find. So, those guys can hold their heads high. They did an amazing job. So, all right. So we'll look forward to that to next Sunday. So we'll put out some details when we know time and everything. And so into the meantime, thanks, Jim, for joining us on another exciting adventure. And thanks to those who joined us on this special live broadcast. So you guys have spoken. So from now on, our broadcasts will be recorded and we'll put them on our regularly scheduled times. That's all good. We still have other stuff that we do live, so that's cool. And if you guys have any ideas for future content, please let us know. And we will get this show out this weekend on recorded. And next week, Tuesday, I believe I'm open. I will try and do some more Arma 3 or some other video gaming. And then Thursday, we will look at doing a Present Arms and have some more hobby time. So in the meantime, guys, thanks very much. And again, we want to thank our sponsors, Blacksite Studios, and especially to all our Patreon supporters. You guys rock, and you make all of this possible. So until the next time, we will see you. Take care.